Hey, good Wednesday afternoon to you. Gabe DeArmond here, PowerMizzou.com publisher. This is PowerMizzou Live every Wednesday afternoon, coming to you 45 minutes later than usual because I had something I had to take care of. We're going to bring Jarod Hamilton in a minute, as well as Anthony Dasher from UGAsports.com. We're going to talk about the marquee matchup in America this weekend, the Georgia Bulldogs and the Missouri Tigers at Faurot Field. But before we do that, we always like to thank our sponsors, and that is James Carlton State Farm Insurance, based out of Webster Groves, St. Louis, Missouri. CarltonInsurance.net. You can call James at 314-961-4800. Anything you need insurance-wise, James is going to take care of you. The one guarantee he's going to make, if you give him a call, you're going to talk to an actual human being, which is a good thing. Unless, I don't know, maybe you're watching this show and you'd rather not hear from an actual human being. But if you call James, you'll be happy about it. He is a Missouri fan, a PowerMizzou.com subscriber. And if you get in touch with him and mention to him that you heard about it on this show, he is going to donate $20 to Missouri's NIL collective, Advancing Missouri Athletes. If your insurance costs a leg and an arm, James Carlton State Farm. Speaking of a leg and an arm, Missouri hoping to get out of Faurot Field this weekend with all limbs attached as the Georgia Bulldogs come to town. Jarod Hamilton in the middle of your screen. Anthony Dasher from UGA Sports, kind enough to give us a few minutes before his semi-annual trip to pick up Q39 in Kansas City and cover a Georgia win in Columbia. Dash, what's going on, man?
Guys, how's it going today? I'm doing well.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking some time. So, look, I'm just going to give you my theory on this game right off the bat, and you tell me if there's any chance I'm wrong. Georgia kind of sleepwalked through a game last week against a team that they knew it could beat with a D game. They won by 17 points, and within 10 minutes of that game, Kirby Smart was probably berating his players, telling them, you are not good enough to just roll your helmets out and beat anybody you want. I'm going to kick your ass for 5 days in practice. You take Missouri seriously, and if Georgia does that, Missouri's in a lot of trouble this week.
Well, I'll be honest with you. After that game, I went in, in fact, I was joking with some people that Kirby was going to go into this press conference and kind of point at the media and say, I told you guys they were good. But honestly, he didn't do that, which kind of surprised me. He actually talked about how the game was a growing opportunity for his team. He didn't really come out guns blazing, pointing out the mistakes, which there are plenty of them in that contest. He again just took it as a learning opportunity. And I'm sure, but privately, quietly, I'm sure the players this week had a interesting practice to make sure some of those same mistakes do not happen Saturday night in Columbia.
I think it was Coach Drink, and it was probably both Drink and defensive coordinator Blake Baker was saying that UGA doesn't have many flaws. They don't see many things, they're bad at. But is there any type of advantage or any sliver of, a flaw that UGA has that Mizzou can take advantage of and maybe score upset?
Well, Georgia fans will tell you that the running backs are subpar this year. Not all fans are saying that, but you know how fans can get. Georgia's had so much success running the football historically, but this year they have not had the explosive plays, that I think Georgia fans have grown accustomed to in the past. But on the other hand, this team has also averaged about 530 yards of total offense, which if the season were to end today would beat the old record by about 60 yards. So, Georgia is doing just a fantastic job of spreading the football around. They've got, even with some wide receivers, I think they're going to be out for this ball game. Yeah, they just got tons of weapons. They're able to get the ball too, and the tight ends. I know, Missouri's well aware of what Georgia has at its disposal there. So it's a very balanced team. They know how to get the ball to the playmakers, and so far the playmakers know what to do once they get the ball in their hands.
Dash, when I look at Georgia's program, it's like Alabama on like a 3 to 5 year delay, right? Because Kirby got there obviously a little later and got started a little later. But they started stacking these top 3, top 4 recruiting classes, and then hey, they got 92 guys or whatever it was drafted last year. They haven't missed a beat. But the way I really see it, Nick Saban was like this anti, hurry up, no huddle, spread offense guy. And he won games with defense and average quarterbacks and all that. And then all of a sudden, Nick Saban said, all right, well, everybody's doing it, so I'm just going to do it better than everybody else because I got better players. And Kirby has built this thing based on, hey, kind of defense. And yeah, they're going to put up some points there, but they're mostly going to do it with the running game. And now all of a sudden, like you said, they're throwing the football all over the field. I mean, what's that transition been like with the defensive guy who's the head coach who all of a sudden has one of the best offenses in the country?
It's been very interesting. I mean, like you said, the first 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years into Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia, Georgia was a team that was going to run the football, do it well, but use the run to set up the play action pass. This year, we've seen none of that. I mean, and I think it really all started in the SEC championship game, 4 years ago, whatever it was, when Georgia got their tails kicked by LSU, when Joe Burrow went in and they just threw the ball all over the field, had all these tons of yards, scored all these points. And I think that's when it finally, resonated with Coach Smart a little bit to say, hey, I might need to kind of change my way of thinking a little bit. So in comes Todd Monken with his NFL pedigree, and it's an entirely different offense than what you saw for this program 3 years ago.
I think it was Coach Drink. I'm sorry, I got a lot going on I'm thinking about, but it was Coach Drink who said, the defense is pretty much multiple. They run 3-4, 4-2-5, 3 safety sets. For one, what does Georgia predominantly run, and how does a team that lost all those first round draft picks and stuff keep retooling and still, look just as good?
Well, their base is a 3-4, but they hardly ever show that. I mean, they'll play with the 5 defensive backs, have a star, money position. Because pretty much anybody now is kind of running that some kind of type of spread offense because you're going to be throwing the ball on first down. So they want as many defensive backs, I think, on the field as they can. But, it's defensively so far, so the team has honestly surprised me. Gabe, you mentioned all the players they lost to the NFL, and this year they are playing a lot of guys who are inexperienced, didn't have a ton of, playing time in college. But so far they've adjusted, pretty well. Now, granted, I'm not sure how how good all the offenses they play so far are going to be, as the year moves on. Now, Oregon has proved since then to be a pretty sound team. But Georgia, to their credit, they just have been plugging different guys in. But so far, the results have, to this point, have actually been even better than last year.
I'm curious I mean, look, every coach every week says kind of the same things, right? They're fast, they're athletic, they're well coached, they're a good team, all that. But in talking to, I don't know what your guys, I mean, I have an idea what your guys' access to coordinators or assistant coaches is, but
what's that?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm curious what Kirby and maybe anybody you've talked to in Athens this week about Missouri, like what are they, when they look at Missouri, what kind of stands out to them, and not necessarily as a concern, but just kind of what are their first impressions?
When actually Kirby was asked that yesterday in his press conference, the first thing he mentioned was the defensive front. I mean, he talked about the job they did against the run, last week against Auburn. How Missouri always plays very physical. They're good tacklers. And I think that's going to be his biggest concern going in. And I kind of mentioned that as far as the running game goes. Again, Georgia's not really had that is the kind of production I think from a running standpoint that people are used to. But going against this, what Kirby says is going to be a very tough challenge in Missouri defensive front. It could be an area again where Missouri could have a little bit of an advantage. We'll see.
Despite all those great players and Jordan Davis being one of them, a lot of people are saying Jalen Carter is actually the best defensive lineman on that front four on that line. First off, what's his update? I feel like I saw something that he had some type of injury concern. And besides him, who has stood out to you on the defense that you didn't expect?
Yeah, Jalen has been dealing with an ankle injury. It happened. Actually, he's had it for about three weeks. A little nagging deal. He played only like a handful of snaps last week. The week before, I think only played 9 against South Carolina. But and Coach Smart said yesterday that he's in fact he said today during the SEC teleconference that Jalen is feeling a lot better and is not 100% yet, but is close to being 100% as he's been in a while. And you're right. I mean, even last year, Jordan Davis will tell you, Quay Walker will tell you, Devontae White will tell you that he was the strongest member from the physical standpoint of the defensive front last year, and preseason All-American, and the draft projections I've seen having, going this year as a top 5 pick. So he's definitely a guy out there. But there are some other players, as well. And then Nazir Stackhouse has come in and with Jalen out and has started at nose guard for the past past two games, I believe it is now, and has been very effective. There's freshman defensive end Michael Williams. You're talking about guys who have, Georgia able to re-plug in. You're talking about another 5-star kid, one of the top, I think it was the top 10, top 20, whatever recruit last year, stepped in and done a good job for them at that spot. And then, excuse me, of course, at linebacker, they've lost everybody, but one young man, a sophomore, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, has come in and been the leading tackler so far. And in the secondary, of course, Chris Smith, safety, is a veteran, but Kelly Ringo, who had the pick six last year against Alabama, is back and having a fantastic. Nobody hardly throws on him, at least haven't so far this year. And combine that with a good group of other safeties and cornerbacks they have with this team. It's a defense that's shaping up to be pretty good again.
Spend a few more minutes here with Anthony Dasher from UGA Sports. I want to invite you guys that are watching live. Feel free to throw your comments, questions, whatever in the queue. We will get to them after we let Dash go. Jarod and I will hang out for a little bit and answer your questions. But Anthony, I've always checked out your guys' site. Really like what you guys do, and so I like to read your message board and stuff. And I know there's been a journey that Stetson Bennett has gone on the last year and a half with Georgia fans. I'm just curious, like, as a guy who's covered this thing for a long time and you've seen a lot of kids go through here, like, we always say, hey, you don't really root for a team necessarily, but you root for a story and you root for kids. I mean, that's got to have been a pretty cool thing to see up close what Stetson's done the last year and a half.
The Stetson Bennett story has been the most intriguing, most interesting story I've covered, my 6 years, whatever it's been of covering, UGA. He's a modern day Rudy. In this story, Rudy actually does something. And does something.
Right. Rudy's actually good at football, right?
Rudy's actually very good at football. I mean, again, you're talking about a guy who in 2017 was running scout team quarterback. I know at the Rose Bowl, the story's been told 1,000 times. He was out there emulating Baker Mayfield, giving Georgia a look they would have not gotten otherwise. Guy winds up transferring, goes to the Jones Junior College in Mississippi, I believe it was, comes back on scholarship. Still going into last year was a third-team quarterback behind JT Daniels and Carson Beck. Winds up winning the job, leads Georgia to a national championship, and this year is on pace to perhaps set the Georgia school record for passing yards in the season if the year were to keep going, like it is. So just an amazing story, amazing kid. Again, he's not 6 foot. He may be a $185 soaking wet, but he's got a stronger arm than people give him credit to. He can move, can run. He's got 4 or 5 touchdowns, rushing this year. He's just a guy that makes things happen, and his story again is just one of the more remarkable ones. Not just I've ever seen, covering Georgia, but in college football, entirely.
And I just want to jump in real quick with a follow-up on that. I mean, at what point did Georgia fans kind of start to – because I know midway through last year it was, when are we putting JT Daniels in the game, man? This is fine for now, but this isn't going to work in the playoff. So did it take him winning the national title before fans changed their mind?
I think it did. I mean, I remember being in Miami for the Orange Bowl. I remember that week, me and Seth Emerson from the Athletic were actually staked out at the airport at Miami because JT had the Daniels flying in late, and people were saying, "Oh, JT's going to get the start of this game." There's a rumor going around he was going to get the start in the Orange Bowl against Michigan, and all Stetson does go in and win the game MVP for offense, and goes in the next 2 weeks later and wins the national championship. But he had struggled somewhat in the SEC title game last year against Alabama in Atlanta, but again, came back strong. But yeah, I think it wasn't until actually won the championship, was smoking that victory cigar, that I think a lot of Georgia fans finally came around and said, hey, all right, he's a pretty good quarterback.
All right. One of my final questions is just keys to the game, 3 keys to the game for Georgia to make sure this game is, not a problem, not something where they have to worry too much and probably play their starters too long in the game they probably expect to win big.
Well, first of all, I think they just need to play their standard. I mean, Georgia makes a big deal about playing to a standard, no matter who the opponent is. They did not do that last week, so I think it's going to be important for them to come out on Saturday night and kind of get back to what ultimately earned them that top ranking in the polls, this year. Second, just stay healthy. I mean, they're at the point right now with the schedule. They don't need to be, losing anybody in what people think is going to be a blowout game. So make sure everybody, stays healthy. But Other than that, I think it's just offensively, just keep doing what they're doing. I mean, they don't. Georgia is one of these teams that if they feel that they can execute to their capabilities, do what they're supposed to do, opposition is not many teams. It's going to matter what happens, and I think you just want to see them come out and make an early statement, have some more success in the red zone. And that's been one of Coach Smart's big things of late. He hates settling for field goals. They've done a good bit of that. I think I think eight trips to the red zone so far this year resulted in field goals. He doesn't like that, so cleaning that up will be key.
Well, Dash, I know the key for you guys is the barbecue on the way in.
Yeah.
So what is it? Friday night and Saturday for lunch?
No,
what's the plan?
No, just Friday. I think I already got my reservations made at Q39. Just a place that you actually turned us on to these many years ago now, and I have not deviated. I've been to several other places in KC, but you got me hooked on Q39, and I'm not changed my mind.
All right, buddy. Well, looking forward to catching back up with you Saturday night. And when we all have our stories written at halftime, maybe we can just hang out in the second half.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thanks, man. Anthony Dasher from UGAsports.com. Guy I've known for a long time. One of the best in our network. No question. And look, we don't mean to make light of it, but Jarod, I don't know. I don't know how to invent a scenario where this one is really interesting. I mean, if you're Eli Drinkwitz, what are the goals here going into this?
You got to start off fast. They haven't had a first drive touchdown all year. At least I can't remember. Or maybe, they had a field goal versus Kansas State, but they have not had a first drive touchdown. They've been talking about starting fast all year, offensively and defensively, and they couldn't really get it going. The defense usually catches back up, even though sometimes it takes a couple punches in the mouth to get it. But the offense is it's very stagnated early on.
Yeah, I mean, here's the way I look at this one. Look, we know what's likely to happen, right? I mean, Georgia's probably going to win this game and probably going to win it pretty big, because the truth is, if Georgia plays an A or a B game, they're going to beat most teams in the country by 3-4 touchdowns. I mean, that's just a fact. But here's what I want to see out of Missouri. So last year, Missouri went into this game, backup quarterback, all that, and they quite clearly, from the opening snap, were just playing not to get beat too bad. They were super conservative, handing the ball off, quarterback run. I would actually kind of like to see Missouri go into this game and just go play football, man. Play your game, take a shot. If you get beat by 60 points, you get beat by 60 points, but don't turtle up and play scared football trying to only lose by 26. Like, go take your shot, because you're in the same league as Georgia, so you got to go act like you're in the same league as Georgia.
Yeah, I forgot where I heard this from, but it wasn't too long ago. Like, somebody was saying, well, if one team is going, is overmatched and facing, this juggernaut or whatever, you might as well play, because no one expects you to win the game anyway. So if you lose, no one's going to be like, Missouri lost or whatever, because that was an expectation. But if you win, people are going to be like, oh, you did this, you did that, you were being explosive, you did all this and that. So they should try to do that, because they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'd like to see, trick plays. If Luther Burden can play, put him at quarterback a few times. Just whatever you got to do, man. Pull out all the stops and go out. And again, if it results in you getting beat by 57 points, so be it. Like, I don't think there's a big difference between losing 40-10 and 65-10. I don't really care. You weren't close to winning a game, but go take I felt like this game last year, Eli Drinkwitz played from the opening snap just to not get beat too bad. And I think that's a bet, even though we're sitting here saying, hey, this isn't going to be a game and all that. Like, those kids in that locker room deserve to be given a shot, right? To be told, hey, we believe in you to go do it. Even if they don't believe in them, just tell them you believe in them and coach like you believe in them.
Yeah, they got a fighting, a puncher's chance, but they should actually take that chance. Don't quit before, anything starts, because you don't know what can happen. And considering what Kent State did early on, like, everybody knew Georgia was going to turn it up, but it was still just kind of like, okay, like, even Kent State can do that. So Missouri should be able to think the same thing.
Yeah. So, like I said, if Georgia plays an A or a B game, Missouri can't win. Like, what letter grade of a game does Georgia have to play before we can start talking about, I mean, if Missouri plays an A game and Georgia plays a what game, Missouri would have a shot. Because I'm somewhere between C- and D+.
Yeah, we right there. We right there. That's about it. I would say it's D. It's or it'll be a D, not even D+, just D.
Okay.
C- is kind of C- sounds like it was one of those games where Missouri loses by 16, but it was like a close 16, like a late touchdown or whatever to boost it up or something. But nah, it's gonna take about a D, A+ performance, and a hot start to get something going.
No, I mean, look, this should be the biggest crowd of the year. It's a night game that Missouri fans have been asking for forever. So the first quarter is huge. Like, I've been at games against teams like this. 2010, Missouri hosted number 1 Oklahoma. And now, look, that Oklahoma team was not as good as this Georgia team, and that Missouri team was better than this one. But point being, Missouri took the opening kickoff back, and that place went freaking nuts. And, like, that momentum carried Missouri for like 2.5 quarters. So what you're saying is right. Like, you need something good to happen right off the bat. And even if it's only 7-0 or something like that, just get something good to happen early and give your guys a little bit of belief.
And on top of that, I guess I'll preface it with this. Yes, you want the first drive just because it'll start building your momentum, get everybody comfortable. You want that to score, but really it's just score first or keep up when it comes to a team like a juggernaut. Like if they score a touchdown and, maybe that next possession you don't score, but you hold them on defense and then you score, like that still works.
Even a stop would be big for Missouri.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got some questions and comments building up, and we're going to get to those in just a minute. But, real quick, just want to get to, we talked to Eli Drinkwitz yesterday afternoon, then talked to some defensive guys last night. You're going to go over and talk to Harrison Mevis and some offensive players tonight. Just kind of curious from your perspective, either out of what we've heard or out of who we're talking to tonight. I mean, what's kind of stood out to you this week? Anything that, since the end of the Auburn game that kind of is, hey, this caught my ear?
I mean, I guess one of the big ones was Drink talking about Nate Pete and kind of what they've preached to those guys as far as ball security and things like that. And you can tell Drink was obviously disappointed at the result, but you can still Nate Pete is going to be the guy. I feel like it's ramping up more. That was his best game. That was his second 100-yard rushing game of his career. His best was last year, I believe, versus USC, where he had 120 yards. He had 110 this game. And if you take away the fumble, obviously, even if he doesn't score, that rush for 20 yards was the longest rush by any player on Auburn or Missouri for that game. So he showed something, and they're still going to trust in him, but he made it an emphasis to note that, like, they've been teaching ball security probably as long as he's been the coach here.
Right. And I think that's a good point to bring up and talk about for a minute, because, so often fans and media too, I don't mean to separate it, but so often anybody that's watching a game blames the coach for everything. And like Eli Drinkwitz was asked yesterday, and he said, we tell our guys all the time, you can't dive for the end zone unless it's 4th down. And, I was talking to Dave Matter after the game on Saturday, and he listened to Sam Pittman's press conference, the Arkansas coach, after Arkansas lost to A&M, in large part because A&M had a 99-yard fumble return when KJ Jefferson did pretty much the same thing Nate Pete did. And Sam Pittman said, look, we stress this every day. We tell them unless it's 4th down, you don't dive for the end zone. And Pittman said, but if they did what we told them to all the time, we would win every game. And that's the point. These are not robots out there. They're 20-year-old kids. So everything that everybody wants to say, well, this is bad coaching and that's bad coaching and fire the coach and he's an idiot and all that. It's not like these kids just automatically go out there and do everything he's ever told them to do, because if so, like, being a coach would be easy. Being a parent would be easy. If kids listened, nothing would be hard.
Yes, and let me preface this by saying Drink did, of course, take responsibility for the loss. He verbatim said he doesn't blame any player for the loss, but he did note that, they show a presentation or something like that about ball security. And there's plenty of times where somebody, even in whether it's being a celebration, which I don't think Pete did, in my opinion, or is it just a play like that where you just lose the ball, kind of tuck it in unless it's fourth down.
Now let's talk for a minute, though. I just absolved Eli Drinkwitz of responsibility for Nate Pete's fumble. Let's talk about the two things that he absolutely can have the blame for. Number one, Missouri's played 2 road games, and they failed to show up in either one until the second quarter started. Now, at least they showed up in this one in the second quarter. I'm not sure they ever showed up at K-State, but the slow start did just a team that looks totally unprepared out of the locker room is one. And number two is you should not jump off sides on a field goal one time in an entire season, and Missouri just did it twice in one game. Like, the penalties are ridiculous with this team.
In week 3, it was all about the offensive line. The 5 holding penalties, false start, all that stuff. And they only had 1 holding call this week. That was the only thing on the offensive line. But there was just a lot of ticky-tack things, whether it's offsides, blocking in the back, all types of things where it's just like, why are you making these specific plays? Like a hold, although holds are bad, you can understand when a hold happens and why it needs to happen. If somebody's about to, blindside Brady Cook, you can see why there would need to be a hold or something like that. But some of the penalties just do not make sense, and they're coming at the wrong time, and they start to add up as the game goes along.
And I hadn't really considered it until I went back yesterday and rewatched the second half in overtime. The player that jumped off sides on the overtime field goal was Darius Robinson, who was literally lined up over the ball. Like, he is staring at the football. That guy can't jump offside. Not ever. How's that happen?
I don't.
I'm not expecting really an answer, but,
it's hard because it's a play that needs to be talked about. But when you think about how good that defense looked from the second quarter to the rest of the game, and how, Mevis has to make that kick. Mevis makes this kick. We're not even talking about this. We're not talking about any of this. So it's hard. Like, that is very true. He cannot be lined up with his head in the neutral zone, basically. But, if they're playing like this, when they make those type of mistakes, the little, a couple penalties here and there, it's, you can forgive that easily. But
yeah. And I don't mean to harp on the Auburn game. We're trying to move on and all that, and we're going to do that. We're going to get to you guys' questions now and comments, and if you have them, continue to post them, and we certainly we'll try to get to everything here before we finish up. But AU Stock says, is it true that if Mizzou beats Georgia, the Georgia players will be made to find their own ways home? I don't know. Like, Kirby doesn't seem like the nicest guy in the world. I think he would let him get on the team flight, but let's try to put this in perspective. And I'll just do it in Missouri perspective. I don't know point spread wise, all that. But if Missouri wins this game, I think it's the biggest upset in school history. Like, I don't think they've ever had a win that would shock me more than this game. So obviously you don't have quite the background of having followed Missouri football for 35 years or whatever. But just in terms of like what's happened in college football this year, I don't know if this would be the biggest upset in the country, but it might be.
It'd definitely be the upset of this season. Let me preface this with a question back to everybody else, and I'm sure they'll answer on the forums and stuff. I asked before the season would the fans take a Georgia win, even if that was going 5-7? And of course, I believe the answer is no. You want to get to a bowl game and stuff like that.
But now the answer is yes.
Exactly. Now considering the circumstances and how things are looking, if someone told you now at 2-2 and how the season's looking, you will beat Georgia, guaranteed some way, but you will go 5-7. Would that kind of make you not feel like the season was a success, but it had something? I want somebody to tell me. I know they're going to tell me they think I believe that or whatever, but that's interesting now that we're in this predicament.
Because I think everybody would take it now, because I think everybody looks at this and goes, well, they're probably going 5-7 anyway. So if you give me 5-7 with Vandy, New Mexico State, and South Carolina, or Vandy, New Mexico State, and Georgia, give me Georgia and I'll take the 5 and 7. So I was going to bring this up earlier, but I saw it in the question, so I held on to it. Kyle McCormick wants to know, much of the talk after every game pertains to Luther Burden's usage. In reality, he's probably the second or third best offensive weapon currently. Where would you rank him among offensive weapons right now? So we'll just start with the actual question. If you're ranking Missouri's offensive weapons, where's Luther Burden fall there? Not like potential-wise, just what we've seen.
Love it. I was gonna say Pete, but I was gonna say I said something the other day, like whoever hasn't started besides this last game, whoever didn't start had the better game.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could just say either running back, honestly, but we'll go Pete, for the sake of it. So love it, Pete. Bannister actually is second in receiving in like a lot of the categories. Obviously, he's only used at some points and stuff, but whenever he's on there, he's usually doing his job well. And then you got Burden. So that would probably be it.
I'd probably still put Burden third. I understand I'm probably falling a little bit victim to potential and hype and all that, but
you just told me not to do potential.
I know. So far, but Burden has been in the end zone 4 times, right? And that I think leads the team.
I thought it was just
maybe 3. Maybe 3.
He had 2 versus
He had 2 in the first game. He had 1 against Evelyn Christian on the punt return. So maybe 3. But point being, I don't know if he leads the team in touchdowns, but he's right there.
Okay.
So I'd probably still put him third. But this brings up a bigger point. I mean, first of all, I don't know. I don't know where I fall on this. You think Luther Burden plays on Saturday?
He should play. Because
I think he should.
He should play if he was really questionable.
Well, let me say, I think he should if he's healthy enough to do so. If it's a situation truly where Drinkwitz is just going, hey, go out there and fair catch a punt and just, whatever, be a decoy, I don't see the point in that. He should play if he's healthy enough to actually be a part of the offense.
There's no such thing as being a decoy versus Georgia. They don't have the talent.
They don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're probably going to, I'm not going to say necessarily lock him up completely, but Luther would not be going off for 100 yards and, 8 catches or whatever, probably versus this Georgia team anyway. So, yeah, I don't think there's being a decoy. It's funny that he's questionable. We've had this conversation as far as like, he went out most of the second quarter.
He played the second half.
And he played offensive snaps and had a couple targets, so it wasn't like he was out there limping or he just didn't do anything else. So he should play, and there's really no reason, unless his injury or whatever progressively gets worse somehow, that he's not out there.
I agree, because, look, he played in the second half, and they didn't practice Monday. So unless he got hurt in practice on Sunday, then there's no reason he doesn't play this week. And if he doesn't play this week, then it's either, well, you holding him out and you don't need to, or why did he play last week, right? One of those two. But the bigger point of this is, and look, we've built this up too. The media has done it. Everybody's done it. We all have played a part. But this is a freshman wide receiver. He can't come in and make an offense that isn't good. He can't change a program by himself. And the sooner we can get to the point of talking about Missouri football and Luther Burden rather than Luther Burden and Missouri football, the better for everybody involved.
I agree. And people, when they see 5-star talent, think about it. More times than not, you're seeing a 5-star talent get added to a team that does not need the talent. Like that team isn't going to be based off whether that person plays or not. Missouri needing the 5-star freshman to start in the SEC, which we say all the time, like if you're doing that with players in this league, I mean, that's kind of tough. You really need that player. So, and we're seeing it with Dom Lovett. That I think he was a 4-star though, right?
Takes a year. Yeah.
Yeah, but it takes a minute to get your legs under you.
Yeah, so I don't think the start of this year means Luther Burden is not going to live up to the potential or anything like that. I think he very well could. The other thing, I saw a tweet a couple days ago that had the stats of the top 5 ranked receivers in this class, and like Luther has as many catches for as many touchdowns as any of them. I mean, it's hard in year one. That's all there is to it. Kyle McCormick says Dalen Cornell seems to consistently make plays when he's on the field. Do you think he gets more snaps as the season progresses? And this brings up a larger point, and Cornell is the guy that I've kind of used to illustrate it. You got to start playing some of these young guys because they're better. Like Dalen Cornell, every single time he's on the field, to me, makes more plays than Martez Manuel when he's on the field. You've got to turn some of this stuff over to the guys with the higher potential. And I'm not saying Martez Manuel doesn't have a role on this team. I think he does. But Dalen Cornell getting 17 snaps versus Martez Manuel getting 48 doesn't make sense to me.
There could be more of a split. The only way I could think, though, Manuel being out there is just, helping the defense, especially with Chad Bailey being out. I know Damian Wilson is going to be setting the defense, calling the plays and stuff like that. But I feel like when you got that safety in there, safeties also are capable of wearing green dots and calling plays and things like that. And I feel like he'd probably be the one safety of the three starters who would be, able to do that the best. But I get what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah, I don't mean this to be an anti-Martez Manuel thing because he came very close to a game-clinching interception, which, by the way, came off a Dalen Cornell tip. But I just think that Eli Drinkwitz has shown a propensity, when in doubt, play the experienced guy, even if the inexperienced guy seems to maybe have a little higher upside. And I think at some point you got to get to playing that upside.
I agree. He definitely has a burst and a pop to him. It feels like when he's on the field, it feels at times Manuel can go under the radar, which isn't bad. Sometimes you do not want to have your name come up in conversations because it just means you're doing what you're supposed to do. But sometimes you also want to be like, hey, what's that guy doing right there? Like when we're talking about Tyron Hopper, we're always saying that every game, that guy right there is making a play.
Yeah, the next two comments kind of go together. Kyle's asking, do you think some of the younger guys will get more chances after the Georgia game? And then Cam Cameron is saying, I found Drink's comments about Taurus Jones interesting. Why was the plan to play him against Auburn when he didn't get any snaps against Abilene Christian? So he got in the last snaps. Series, right? Yeah. He had 3 carries against Abilene Christian. But the way I took Drinkwitz's comments yesterday were Taurus Jones was in the game plan. He was the third running back on the team. And once we got into it, Nate Pete was running really well and Cody Schrader was doing okay. So we just never hit a point where we went to that third back. But I think Taurus Jones is a clear number 3 on the depth chart, at least if Elijah Young is out. Now, if Elijah Young comes back, who knows? But again, that kind of goes back to that conversation of let's see what he's got, man. Put one of the young guys out there.
Yeah, but I definitely understand why he didn't do it in week 3. I mean, 20
at Auburn, yeah.
And even Schrader had the touchdown, and he had 7 carries for, I believe, 39 yards.
And also had a big, nice carry that would have put Missouri in game-winning field goal range if not for a holding penalty.
Yeah, so, and he played well, but Pete just played so much better. You can't do that in a close game like that. So, it's just he just didn't have the time or the opportunity.
But I think we'll see Taurus Jones. Now, whether he plays in more than 4 games and burns a red shirt could depend on just how the season goes. But I think we're going to get a shot to take a look at him. Cam Cameron says Drink needs to make play calls like he did in year 1 against LSU and throw every wrinkle in the book. I tend to agree. Jackson says, do you think fans have the right to complain about the output of the team when fans don't seem to care about supporting during rough times? I mean, college football is weird. Like they've got to have the support to win, but they've got to win to earn the support. I don't know. It's a tough question. I think if you are one of the people who chooses to spend your money on it, your complaint and your time on it, your complaining maybe carries a little bit more weight. But look, man, everybody's a fan of the team, and when the team's not doing what you want it to do, I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody not to be disappointed.
You got to think about any team you're a fan of, professionally, college, high school, well, maybe not high school, but college and professionally, most of the fan base are fair weather fans. There is in my opinion, I feel like most people are like, oh, this team's doing well. Yeah, I'm a fan. And then there's this real group of you guys who are there through thick and thin. So you got to understand that you're probably not going to outnumber a casual fan And so you telling them to do that, it's not really going to work. But I would get why you're upset when you've been in, through the tough times and when they're good and stuff like that. But you can't tell somebody you can't. It's not going to. It's not going to do anything.
Right. I mean, it's not going to prevent them from having a Twitter account or an account on PowerMizzou or all that. And we do understand the question, Jackson. But like, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and I always get accused of like lecturing fans and talking down to them. So I'm trying not to do that. I understand why everybody's upset about the way this year has gone so far. I think some of the reaction is certainly a little over the top. I don't think we need to be talking about firing guys in year 4 or week 4 and all that, but hey, that's the internet and that's where we're at. So,
Gabe, I think they should, if they'd listen to us just a little bit more and tame the expectations, just tame it just a little bit. I don't know. We trying to lead them the right way.
He said it, guys. I didn't say I told you so. He said it. I want you to remember that. So, all right. So you're going over. I'll be interested to see what Harrison Meva says tonight. Dom Lovett's talking. We'll have another full notebook tomorrow. We'll have the preview on Friday. Give us a sneak peek, man. Like you're picking Missouri to win again, right? You picked them to win last week, so you're sticking with that.
Wait. Okay, 2 things. One, Missouri should have won that game. I said they were going to win 23-10 last week. They should have won that game. So I'm going to count that as 3-0 this year. I picked the games correctly. I'm 3-0.
I don't know if you know, but that's not how this works.
It's how it's working today.
Okay.
But I will take Georgia. You said the spread is what, 28 or 28 and a half?
Yeah, 28 and a half, something like that. Yeah.
I would say the score is going to be 45-10.
You think they get in the end zone, huh?
I'm thinking more so of K-State situation.
Okay.
Everybody's got their 4th stringers in, and you're at the 1 yard line, and Drake is like, "I'm gonna get you, Tavares. I got you."
I haven't settled on a score yet. I don't gamble. I don't encourage other people to gamble. I would say if I did, I've been told that the Georgia first half line is -17. I think angry Kirby and angry Georgia might have a pretty decent chance to be up more than 17 at halftime. That's my only prediction for now. So
okay, do you have what's the full one? I need a full.
I haven't gotten there yet, man. It's not going to be close. I'll say that. It's not going to be close.
Predictions are fluid, guys. They're fluid.
Yeah. So, all right, Jarod, appreciate it, man. Look forward to stuff out of tonight. And guys, appreciate you guys watching. If you joined us live, hit the like button, the subscribe button, do all the things that make YouTube think we're way better at this than we actually are. If you're listening on the podcast, leave us a nice review, all that. Regardless of if you do any of those things or not, the most important thing is reach out to James Carlton State Farm in St. Louis, Missouri. He can take care of your insurance needs in Missouri, in Illinois. He's got some teen driver stuff. If you got a teenage driver in the house, need to check out that. He can do auto, home, life, all those things. CarltonInsurance.net, 314-961-4800, Facebook.com/Carlton Insurance. If your insurance costs a leg and an arm, call James Carlton State Farm and also mention PowerMizzou, and he's going to make a $20 donation to Advancing Missouri Athletes, Mizzou's NIL Collective. Appreciate you guys joining us, and we will be back late into the night on Saturday from Faurot Field, or maybe we'll just do it at halftime, but we'll see you then.